Sponsor an orphan, and you'll help support a vulnerable child to have the education they've always dreamed of, so they can build a brighter future. You'll be feeding a hungry stomach and a hungry mind with knowledge that will last them a lifetime. That's the power of an education. Sponsor an orphan now with Islamic Relief.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. This is your brother Preacher Moss, the host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. And of course, we got Sister Satana riding shotgun on the board today on her Tuesday and Thursday appearances that she makes behind the board. I hope everybody's having a good day. You know how Thursdays are. You want to have a good Thursday, get into Friday, and some of us just want to have a good Thursday period. That's the way it is. So I just want to throw this out. This is really a thought. Today's program is literally called The Power of Listening More. And I'm going to explain a little bit about the title, The Power of Listening More and Talking Less. I've explained numerous times on the show that my natural disposition, really, besides the fact that, outside of the fact that I'm a comedian, is the fact that largely I'm an introvert. It's not even about being an only child. It's just the fact that I was cool with myself in these spaces, and I had my own machinations. I had my own coping techniques to deal with the fact that I was alone a lot. But more so that I chose to be alone, not that I was left alone. I kind of chose to be alone. I needed to have these pockets of space where I was not just alone with myself, but I engaged in certain aspects of solitude. Very, very important. And as I grew older, what happened, particularly when you're younger, this is interesting. When you're younger in the African American community, when you're a child, you will spend a large part of your time around adults not talking. You will spend a large amount of time around adults not talking. The reason is it's not your place to talk as a child. When adults are talking, you shut up. Now, it's not that way now. Kids say whatever they want to these days, and parents look at them crazy. They look at the parents crazy. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the power of listening. And why is it important? Because the power of listening is, in many regards, a discipline. And when I say a discipline, it means that you have dedicated a certain amount of your cognitive surplus to enhancing and evolving the skills of listening to what people have to say. You can hear what they're saying, but listening is different. Listening is a direct derivative of my focus, and I expect to get something out of this conversation. There is either going to be an emotional response, an emotional release, or there's going to be some type of interchange whereby I feel, let me frame this properly. I feel that I have engaged you in a way whereby at the end of the discussion, you feel a certain amount of fulfillment. I feel a certain amount of fulfillment because I know more about the person. I know more about the situation. I know more about the opportunity, whatever it is going down in space. These are the things that are really, really important. Now, I've queued up 2 videos today. We're not going to get to them just right now. I've queued up 2 videos. One talks about the art of listening. Now, I put talking less on the other side. I think I was in error saying talking less. I said listening, the power of listening and talking less. Really, it's not talking less. It is talking and engaging inquisitively. When I say talking and engaging, you're learning to ask questions as a result of your heightened effort to listen to what people are telling you. You know, the best question you're going to ask a person is the one that they had on their tongue. And a lot of times, the one they have on their tongue is the one that they want to get answered the most. A lot of times when we're in conversations, we don't realize that our listening serves a certain perfunctory function because people are trying to prime us for what that conversation is going to be. You have people who will talk to you for a myriad of reasons. Some people talk to you to give you information. Some people talk to you to share information. Some talk to you because they're trying to bounce concepts. They're trying to see what is the elasticity of an idea. And of course, what is your opinion? Some people talk because they need to get things off of their chest, and getting things off of their chest in a large regard allows them to move forward, whatever it is in life and business that they're trying to do. We've all been there. We've all found ourselves in conversations. But the couple of things I'm going to say when we come back from the kickoff here is the fact that you can be a strategist in this process. It's a shout out show, the power of listening and talking less. We'll be right back. All right, we are in the house. Before we get started with our topic today, top of the bill, got to give a shout out to Sister Reed. Sister Reed, hope you're doing well. God bless. Hope you and my main man Derek and my main man Juwan are doing well. Peace and blessing to you and the family. I'm going to roll down my main man Altaf Rashid. Well, I like my salon, rahmatullahi barakatuh, beloved. Our Canadian envoy to the show, to the shout out show, Mr. 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down. Thank you for coming on the platform and always supporting us. Everybody supports us, man. Alhamdulillah. We are spoiled in that way. Next up, what's going on? Brother Adam Khan, well, I like my salon, rahmatullahi barakatuh. If I'm Batman in Canada, then you are Robin, my brother. Good to see you, man. Hope everything's going well with you and your family, and God bless, man. Having you in my du'as. I'm glad you hit me up today. I appreciate it. All right, next up, my little brother Johnny L. Thomas. What's going on, beloved? That's my sidekick right there, people. I hope everything's going well in Milwaukee, man. Again, thank you for your generosity and your fellowship, hanging out with your big brother in Milwaukee. Even when I pulled a hamstring, man, you were there for me. I appreciate it. Much love. Next up, Brother Carter, what's going on, beloved? Good to see you on the show. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi barakatuh to you, sir. Hope you're staying cool wherever you are. We appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for tuning in. And my brother Bilal Salahuddin and his queen, sister Sonia Salahuddin Dalton. We are glad to see you on the show, on the program. God bless you. Thank you so much. I see you in the house, man. I see you in the house. We got to connect and get on the call, man. Make sure you're doing okay. Got some good news that came through. And of course, we want to give a shout out to our consultant producer. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi barakatuh, Sister Satana Whitfield in the house on the ones and twos on the production board. We appreciate you making this thing happen. Sister Satana, next time on Tuesday, I'm going to go back to standing. If my hamstring will handle it, I'm going to go back to standing next week. We're going to go back and y'all see all of me just standing, profiling like this, like New York City outside the Roxy in 78. Okay, all right, I worked on that. Look, Satana. I worked on that all day long. All right. I give y'all one more. Okay. Let's get to the topic today. Our topic today, the power of listening and talking less. Do they connect? Yes. Because you can't hear what someone else is saying when you're talking. That's one. But it's very hard to hear what someone else is saying when you're thinking about what you're going to say. Years ago, I saw a comedian, and I'm going to show him at the end of the show. I saw a comedian at the Milwaukee Riverside Theater. His name was Rodney Dangerfield. Now, Rodney Dangerfield, many of you guys have seen him. You know, he was born in 22. Guy passed away 2004. He was 82 years old. He did stand up for a number of years. He was an old school type of dude, you know, he's sort of like the typical Jewish comedian. You know, he had one-liners. And I remember watching him as a young comic, and he walked out, no opener, in front of people, and he started talking, and he destroyed the place. Rodney Dangerfield destroyed the place, and he would tell jokes, and the magic of it was if you didn't laugh at the first joke in time, he'd move over to the next joke, and summarily, you would find yourself not laughing at the joke he just told, but the one he told 2 jokes before that. And the wave of the crowd was just laughing like this, laughing like this, laughing like this. And for a lot of years, even, you know, a couple years, I always go back to that time, and I look at him sometimes on Johnny Carson's show, and I'm like, what was it that made him so good? And what made him so good, brothers and sisters, is not just he was a patient comedian, but he mastered the skill of getting listeners, hear me now, listeners to approach his act empathetically. When he was older, he would say, I get no respect. And it was a cue for a lot of people because it wasn't just him that didn't get respect. There were a lot of people in the world that work really, really hard, struggle really hard. They don't get the respect. And that was a cue. It was a catchphrase for a lot of years. But what I thought was interesting was he could get people in between jokes to listen and listen more. To listen and listen more. And that approach is something I took as a comedian because you have to realize that the people in your audience are not assets. They're not. They are human capital in and of themselves. Let me explain. Human capital in and of themselves. Because to have a good time at a comedy show requires that people around you, at least in the aspect or the aesthetic of laughing, are having a good time too. Sometimes you look at someone and they're laughing, and in the the emotional response is that you start laughing too. You loosen up. I watched Rodney Dangerfield do a process whereby he made sure that people were listening. He increased their empathetic listening. He framed a way for people to listen and laugh at the same time. Hear me now. Listen and laugh at the same time. It was amazing when I watched it. And what does that have to do with what we're talking about today? Simple. We all have the capacity to do that as well. In our interpersonal communications, in our business relationships, in our networkings, what we deal with now is everybody has something to say. Everyone has some bit of noise to say. What it comes down to, whether people want to admit it or not, a Zoom or whatever platform you're using, that person who is speaking has the capacity and the opportunity that Rodney Dangerfield would do with his audience. And I'm saying this to everybody that's watching. It's the fact that because we have so much noise, the fact that we can be quiet and listen intently increases our value in our conversations, and in many regards, our quality of life. So I kind of went a little bit around, but I'm telling you why this is important. Because even with the shout out show, I can't see the people that I'm talking to, but thanks to Rodney Dangerfield and some really great communicators that I've had throughout my life as mentors and family members, I think the thing that's beautiful is you have to understand, even when you're talking to a screen, that there's a conversation and the other person on the side of the screen or the phone has an opportunity and has an expectation that you are going to engage them in a certain way. That we want them to listen for the quality of the conversation, also the quality of the response, the quality of not just the conversation response, but here's a big one: the emotional attachment. When we watch imams or we watch preachers, you know what every imam, every preacher has to deal with, whether they want it or not? When they start a khutbah or they start a sermon, you know what they deal with? Silence. Silence. Every performer, good, bad, in between, every comedian, good, bad, in between. When you start your set, you know what you start out with? Silence. And there's a give and take with that silence. Am I just going to talk at you? Or am I going to talk with you? Am I going to frame a relationship in this conversation? Am I going to treat you as some asset that's not really mine? Or am I going to look at the whole space going, this is human capital. We are going to create, for whatever, 35, 45 minutes to an hour, we're going to create an atmosphere where this is community. Like I said, Rodney Dangerfield was a beast. I've never seen it repeated. We talk about Dave Chappelle a lot. And, you know, I give Dave a lot of props. But I saw Dangerfield do it first. The mastery of the one-liners. Dave mastered silence between jokes. Rodney Dangerfield mastered the silence in between the jokes, but at a particular pace and a particular cadence. And he maximized this thing. And when people walked out, and I remember watching this at the Riverside Theater so many years ago, people would lean forward because they wanted to hear. One of the tricks I used to do in communication when in education, excuse me, one of the tricks I would do in education when I had kids that were loud and unruly, instead of yelling at the top of my lungs with the kids, I would talk to one at a very low level, and the kid would lean in. And summarily, the other kids would lean in. And at the beginning of the day, I didn't talk really high. I asked everybody how they were doing, and guess what I did as an educator? I sat and listened. And the only level that was higher than that was to teach everyone in the class that we need to listen to so and so. We need to listen to so and so. And it created an emotional bond at the top part of the classroom. It's no different than what we do now. It's just that we have so many distractions that out there. We have so many people who assume that when they open their mouth, the people on the other side of the conversation really want to hear what they're talking about. Well, the conversation starts when you understand that that person has two options in terms of listening to you. They can listen with you and be a person that has skills. And when I say that, this comes from also being a journalist. You have to listen to what people say in interviews. You have to listen to what people are saying in film. You have to have all these things because it increases the quality of the exchange. It increases the quality of engagement. These are the things that we have to do. So let me show you this video. It's a very short video of a guy talking about the art of listening. So let's go ahead and bring that in, Satana.
So listening is not the act of hearing the words spoken. It is the art of understanding the meaning behind those words. When people say you're not listening to me and we simply parrot back the words that they were said, congratulations, your ears work. That is the act. That is the act of listening. But the art of listening is creating an environment in which the other person feels heard. Now you notice what I said there. The other person, and I used an emotional word, feels, right? I don't want to know that you heard the words. I want to feel heard. I want to feel seen. I want to feel understood. And that is a learnable, practicable skill. So it's there are many parts of it. It's things like replacing judgment with curiosity, right? That's a hard thing to do. We're a pretty judgy group, right? To be curious why someone has a point of view. It's creating a safe space for someone to, as my friend Dia Khan calls it, empty the bucket. So even if we find what they're saying just reprehensible, right? You're never going to be able to actually have dialogue until at least one of the parties gets the opportunity to say everything without judgment. And as she calls it, emptying the bucket. And once somebody feels like they've completely said everything, then they're more apt to listen to you. But usually what we do is we defend, or we litigate, or we interrupt. We point out flaws in logic, which is just frustrating. And when you point out some flaws in somebody's logic, because we're all imperfect when we speak, and we all choose the wrong words at various times. And that's not what I meant. You know what I meant is what we have to say. Well, what if you know what you meant? Then why don't you say what you can see how this spirals. But it's things like when somebody says something, and there's really easy ways to do it. Things like, go on, tell me more. What else? And they keep talking. And you go quiet, they feel the space. Tell me more. Go on. And eventually, it's all out. And then there's a safe space for you to respond and express yourself in a constructive way. But that's correct. We do not teach listening, and listening is the way to create to build trust with someone. You make someone feel heard, they'll trust you. It is the way to find common ground in opposition, in simple cases in business, but in more complicated cases in national politics, or in global politics, or in war. Why do William Ury, who wrote Getting to Yes, he talks about the same thing. He goes, we have talk shows, but we don't have listen shows. He says we have peace talks, but what we really need is peace listens. And he, who's been at the table at the highest levels of peace negotiations, he said people show up and start demanding what they want, and that's how the negotiations begin. Nobody starts by saying, so tell me why you came here. There's a great documentary that I recommend to learn this It's called White Right, Meeting the Enemy by Dia Khan. In a nutshell, Dia is a Muslim woman living in the UK who was trolled by white supremacists to the point where the police got involved because her life was at risk. They told her stay away from open windows. That's how bad it got. The way Dia responded was by moving to the United States and going to meet the white supremacists. And she brought her cameras. I mean, you can see it all happen in this documentary. And basically, she gave them a safe space to feel heard. Now, that sounds mad. Like, why should she give them a safe space to feel heard? They should give her a safe space. Yeah, fine, good. You know, like, it's never going to happen. Dia sits down with these white supremacists and she gives them a safe space to feel heard. It's extreme listening. And I say it's extreme because, I mean, they hate her, you know? They don't just disagree with her. They want her off the planet. And she lets them empty their bucket, as she calls it. And then conversation begins.
You know what we're doing, the power of listening and talking less. We'll be right back. Hey, babies. Welcome to Radio WCUC, Convenient Urgent Care, home of the smart patient. This is DJ What It Do. You know what time it is. It's the top of the hour, and the request lines are open. You know what you want to hear. I know what you want to hear. Operators are waiting.
I just got to hear don't get the COVID.
Don't get the COVID. Put your mask back on. The Delta COVID, more contagious than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get the vaccine. You know that it can keep you safe. And your people living up in your space. Don't get the COVID. You need to wash your hands. The Delta COVID is more deadly than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get your vaccine. You know that it can keep you from dying. Don't leave your family all alone and crying. Don't get the COVID.
We invite you to join our fight against COVID and against misinformation. It's time to listen to the doctors and trust the science.
When I think of people dying that don't have to die, it makes me sad. Now's the time to be sober. Together we can make this thing over. Let's fight the COVID. Convenient urgent care, home of the smart patient.
So now that you got to actually hear a little bit more technically about why the ability to listen effectively is so important, you know, start thinking of some of the things, people around you and how you can communicate with them better. Understanding the fact that a lot of times when people are speaking, they are looking for a listener who's going to give them a safe space. Doesn't happen often, you know, and we are judgmental, particularly in society today. We are judgmental. It's really a question of who can you trust, because people are not necessarily, I don't even say put your best foot forward or put your best self out there. You know, people aren't even putting their most truthful self out there. So it's always working through levels. But I find that this skill, the power of listening and engaging in it, as the guy said, letting people empty their buckets, being empathetic. Also, something I find is allowing people to speak in a creative narrative about what it is they're speaking about. I find that getting people to move towards storytelling is really, really helpful. Like when I say, hey man, what's going on with you? You know, how'd your day start? It's a cue. How did you say, well, I talked to you at noon. What happened at noon? And people will tell you, and they will segment their day. This is one of the techniques I use. They will segment their day. And a lot of times when people are angry, you can actually pick the part of the day where they weren't angry. Hey man, what's the highlight of your day? Oh, it was this. And I found this worked really, really well when I was teaching. I was in education in Milwaukee and Long Beach, because people will take you from a spot and they'll take you from a spot to a spot when they say, hey, this is where my safe space is. And we can have that conversation. And they respect you for it. And they reward you oftentimes about this safe space. they reward you because you took them there, and they feel like this is a place they can return often if you give them a shot. Okay, now as promised, I wanted to show you Rodney Dangerfield, one of my favorite comedians. He was funny. Nobody really do this style these days. It's an old style doing comedy. It's called the one-liners. But the beauty of the one-liners was the one-liners made you listen. It was actually punctuation at the end of a joke. Bam. And that's when you knew it was different. Reset, bam. Reset, bam. Reset, bam. You know, this art form is lost. I just guys want you to know that. Everybody is conversational because we think that everybody wants to hear what we got to say. This is a return to the old school. So if you've never seen Rodney Dangerfield, you are in for a treat. Sadonna, can we bring him up?
What a crowd. What a crowd. Now, I'll tell you, I'm all right now. The Stephanie's in rough shape, you know. Yeah, my wife, she started in again, you know. She keeps throwing up to me. I went to Las Vegas and went broke playing the slot machines. Now, Vegas, they got slot machines all even in supermarkets. I went into our container of milk, cost me $238. Now, I'll tell you the truth, I had trouble with my wife before we got married, you know. We went together for 6 months, then she gave me the air, told me it was all over. I said to her, what's the matter? Is there somebody else? She looked at me. She said, there must be. I'll tell you what, my wife, I never got no respect at all, you know. We were going steady. She told me, don't talk about sex until we get married. We got married. She told me, now you can talk about it all you want. I'm married 20 years. All I get is smart answers and bad cooking. And my wife's cooking, forget about her cooking. But the other night I left over a hamburger. She used it to scrub the sink. Well, you had to come and get it. My house is try and eat it. The trouble with me is I'm too easygoing, you know? Like this afternoon, I had a bite to eat in a restaurant. I got busy. I had to share a table with someone. He sat down, an old man. Must have been in his 80s. I mean, this guy was old. I asked him to pass me the salt and pepper. He had to make 2 trips. I never get lucky in restaurants. I had dinner last night in a Chinese restaurant. I opened my fortune cookie. And it was a guy's check next to me.
The new best way to make money online that nobody's talking about is something you've never heard of.
I said to him, hey, buddy, I got you a check. He said, thanks. I was going to take a little vacation, talk to some guy who works in travel agents. He told me I could spend 6 nights in Puerto Rico. No days, just 6 nights in Puerto Rico. I said to him, well, I do myself days. He says, you can do whatever you want, just keep out of Puerto Rico. It's a good crowd here, I'll tell you that, you know. That with me, nothing works out, you know. My neighborhood's getting worse. I told you before, I live in a tough neighborhood, you know. Just last week, a guy pulled a knife on me. I could see it wasn't a real professional job. There was butter on it. I tell you where I live, you can't protect yourself. But one day, there was a knock on my front door. I figured I'd play it safe. I opened the peephole. The guy reached in and grabbed me. I tell you, my building is nothing but robberies. Every time I close a window, I hit somebody's hand. Nothing but robberies over there. But the other night, I took the wife and kids out. I figured I'd play it safe. Left all lights on the apartment, left the radio on, left a note in the front door, the note said I'm inside. Came home that night, I still got robbed. The guy left his own note. He said, I looked all over for you.
Shout out to Rodney Dangerfield, everybody. Shout out to Rodney Dangerfield. Hey, listen, that's pretty much our show for today. If you have any questions about the power of listening, you know what? I tell you what, go to permissiblelaughter@gmail.com. Again, that's permissiblelaughter@gmail.com. If you have any questions, comments, send them there, and I will address them, inshallah, very soon. So before we get out of here, I want to give a shout out to my man from Detroit, Halal Chinese Food. I don't even know what this shirt's about. The brother gave it to me, and it was clean. So I appreciate that. So listen, everybody, we will see you on Monday. God bless you. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care. Inshallah, we'll see you on Monday. This is your brother, Preacher Moss, on the Shout Out Show. That's a wrap. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.